How close are the Maple Leafs to dealing away Matthew Knies? Let's discuss on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel's giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger payouts, potential wins with college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Like fading the Maple Leafs seems like a pretty good bet for the final 18 games here, Dave. I think I'm going to just fade the Leafs each and every night. I think we'll come out on the other side better than when we walked in. And they got the Montreal Canadiens tonight. Game 63 on the calendar for the Maple Leafs, and or 65, sorry. Yes, that's math right there. And, I don't have high hopes that they snap the 7-game skid tonight in Montreal.
It would be the Leafiest thing if they somehow did, but...
Actually, that's true. I take that back. I have full expectations for them to snap the streak tonight in Montreal.
But I do not advise you to place a wager on FanDuel. Just
no, not on that at least.
We're not that confident. But Mike, a great night for the tank.
Yeah, last night. You're talking about last night. Yeah. Go ahead, hit me with it.
Well, first off, Scott Lunn, 2 straight games with a goal. Apparently, that guy can do more than just play fourth line center.
Oh, you don't say. All right. Fascinating.
So not only did they move up, the San Jose Sharks moved up.
Ooh.
The Florida Panthers, I think the Leafs are still below the Panthers. The Leafs are now gone from 24 to 25th in the overall standings.
There we go. Getting closer and closer to 28th. That's the magic number.
Oh, and the New York Rangers won tonight too.
Yep. That's right.
We were talking that maybe fifth lowest might not be enough. So, improve as many of the odds as you can. And New York still has a game in hand on Toronto as well.
All these teams actually below Toronto do have a game in hand. So Nashville, Winnipeg, St. Louis, New York, Calgary, Chicago, and Vancouver. All those teams, all that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams currently below Toronto in the standings. That we got to fall back.
2 games in hand. 2 games in hand.
2 games in hand on a couple. Yeah, 2 games in hand on Winnipeg. That's right. But a game in hand on the rest. So it's still possible. The drive for 5 is still possible here for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we talked about it yesterday. It's still, it is entirely possible. Like once you get to 5, you're basically at 2. You know what I mean? Like there's only 2 points that separate 28th and 31st. So 32nd place, like last place, number 1 pick odds, that's going to Vancouver. That's locked and loaded. But if these other teams continue to win some games here, it's possible we could see the Maple Leafs drop as far as 31. And yes, that would guarantee them their pick this season. And I wonder too, Dave, like I wanted to have that chat today a little bit, and we'll get into like how they could possibly make meaning of the season. We'll get into this big report too about Matthew Knies, how close he got to being traded. But I wonder too how much this draft pick will dictate where the Leafs go next year. I wonder. Go ahead.
Part of me is not even where the pick will dictate what they do with the pick, because teams will be calling. They'll know that Toronto, as much as we would probably all want Toronto to make the selection because they need
a draft.
It's a good
draft. They need young, cheap talent.
The top 3, like those are franchise worthy players. We've been hearing, but teams are going to be dangling some carrots out to see if the Leafs will bite. They will. And, knowing the Leafs, they very well might take them up on that.
But here's why I say I think it could depend on, if the Leafs can finish in the top 5 and get that draft pick. I think that officially would put them in the driver's seat to be retoolers and try their darndest to get back into the postseason the following year, because that pick's unprotected. At least you got top 5 protection on this one, but the following year is unprotected. So,
it's also why this idea of trading everybody away a rebuild can't happen.
No,
it can't happen as long as you don't have your first round picks.
Well, yes. However, again, that's if the Leafs finish in the bottom 5 and get that pick. If they don't and they have to relinquish the pick to Boston, then I think you could go in a situation where it's like, okay, we don't have our first round pick this year, but we have it next year. Why don't we just go ahead and strip this thing down?
Hold on. You have a pick next year. It's not your pick.
Oh, that's right.
That one is top 10 protected because Colorado knows how to do these conditions properly.
Correct. I meant, I guess I was thinking like they would have
if you're fast tracking a rebuild, 2028 is when.
So that pick drops all the way to 2028. If they get that pick this year, that drops to 2028 for Boston.
So if the Leafs don't, because they've already traded away the 2027 pick. There was no conditions on that pick.
Right. Man, that's it's tough. That is tough for the Maple Leafs. Jeez Louise. It's tough. I was gonna say, I was like that would make, because if you're the Leafs, you're thinking, okay, if we don't have our pick next year, we got to go for it then. And hopefully they end up with a top 5 pick. They can either use that to retool, get a good player, or they could take one of these young players as well and, just use that as a, thank you. We had a down year. We get a good young player to build around. Let's move forward with it. But I totally forgot that they either way.
Hold on. I'm just looking now. It might be top 10 protected in 2027, the pick.
Okay.
So I don't know how that changes. I think the Boston pick would go to 2028 if it's because the Leafs because of the moves they made. Because they couldn't put conditions on saying, okay, 2026 will move to 2027, right? They can't do that because
that's usually how that works, though. Yeah. That is typically how that works. But I guess if you already traded away 27, and then it has to be conditional sliding all the way to 28. But they own their 2028 pick as of now. So let me just read into this. Hold on a second. Let me read what the conditions are. If I could get her. Top 5 protected slides to 2027. The 2027 pick goes to Philadelphia. If it's outside of the top 10, which converts this pick to Boston into a 2028 unprotected first round pick. Right. So so basically the Leafs are screwed. So pretty much
essentially the Leafs have made this a no-win situation over the next 2 years.
Well, what they've made it is impossible to strip it down and tank. What they've made it? It's impossible to strip it down. If you're the Leafs, you're hoping that you can get the pick this year at the very least and maybe use that to retool, right? Like that's what you're hoping for if you're the Maple Leafs, because you don't have your pick the next couple of years, right? You're not going to have that pick if you end up with it this season. So that's kind of where the Maple Leafs are at. But like we said, last night was a good night for those hoping that Toronto can fall out of it. You did get a couple of teams who needed to get some wins to try and pick up points and close the gap on Toronto that did just that. It's exactly what you need to see happen. The LA Kings picked up a win. Chicago's currently, leading Utah. I think Chicago actually might have just beat Utah now that I'm literally looking this up. I think they scored in overtime. So Chicago picked up points. So they're getting ever so close. So a couple teams that are trailing, the Rangers you mentioned earlier, a couple teams that are trailing, the Maple Leafs picking up points, and that's on top of the Jets and Blues who've won 3 and 4 in a row respectively. So Team Tank looking good this season. But we got to move quick and hopefully
after that. Well, I mean, Austin Matthews, I think his comment after he was talking about how, Tampa had an off year, I think 2016, 2017, they were right back at it the year after. And I'm sure some people scoffed when they heard that. I don't mind that mindset because it just means, okay, like they know this year, the position that they're in, the reality of their position, and that the focus truly does shift to next year.
Yeah. I mean, that's where they're at. That's where they're at. So, this season wins don't really matter a whole lot. You try and get as far down the draft board as possible, finish with the top 5 pick. You can either use that pick as trade bait, or you can use it and get yourself a good young player and kind of move forward. And you won't have your next 2 first-round picks. So Toronto's in a position where if they get that pick this year, they got to go for it the next couple of seasons. And, well, those are the years that Auston Matthews is under contract. So you're going for it anyways, unless you're really blowing it up without your picks. It does seem like it's a bit of a tough pill to swallow to do that. All right, let's take a break. Let's come back. Speaking of picks and trades, there was one trade that is being floated out there and reported a few days after the NHL trade deadline. The Maple Leafs getting so close to a deal, sending Matthew Knies to a division rival. Let's chat about that next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who can actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. And listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your post. So remember, go to Indeed.com/podcast and get the support, support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsor jobs.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you, as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, with brand new episodes of the Locked On Leafs podcast, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to the show on YouTube as well. All right, Dave, your boy Kipper over at Sportsnet really sent Leafs Twitter into a frenzy today by reporting that he had heard, again, nothing official, these are just reports. He had heard that the Maple Leafs got decently far in a conversation regarding a potential Matthew Knies trade. The team that he reportedly heard were seriously considering pulling the trigger on a Knies deal, the Montreal Canadiens. Yes, apparently Kent Hughes and Brad Treliving had some legitimate discussions surrounding Matthew Knies and potentially going from Toronto to Montreal. Let's unpack this. First of all, your thoughts and your reaction when you first heard that come out of Kipper's mouth today.
Man, yeah, that and he said Ken Hughes was late for his presser because clearly there was something being worked and it didn't go through. And it kind of felt like there were probably so many deals that get left undone. I mean, look, the Leafs had both of their trades go past, announced past the 3 p.m. deadline.
Yeah.
So clearly there was some stuff being worked on. And when you hear, look, we knew the Matthew Knies stuff was out there because Elliot Friedman had posted it a few days before. And Elliot's not putting that out there just to put that out there.
Right.
When I heard it was Montreal, I went, that might have broken so many, like not only Leafs Nation, but just the Leafs and Habs coming together on a trade is one thing, but the Leafs trading Matthew Knies to the Habs, I think there would have been demonstrators at the offices of like Brad Treliving's office.
Oh
and,
yeah,
like
they'd be calling for his head. They'd be calling for his head. Like, could you imagine if everyone's sitting there watching Trade Center, watching Trade Deadline, and you hear like Elliot Friedman or Darren Dreger say, "Hearing Knies on the move, Montreal," the place would erupt if that were to happen. Obviously it didn't. I'm curious. I would love to be a fly on the wall to see like how close it really got. Like, was it just a discussion? Were the parameters discussed? Was there, any potential type of like soft offer? Was there a back and forth? I would like to know, just how far into talks it got. Sounds like it wasn't just hey, is this guy available? It sounds like it may have gone a little deeper than that. Obviously nothing got close enough to get it over the finish line. But obviously, like, this is a situation that could definitely pick up again in the summer at the end of the day. Like, this is something that if Kent Hughes, the GM Montreal, wanted to be persistent and land Matthew Knies, he could pick up conversations again in the summer. But the Leafs would be just stupid to do this. Like, the Leafs have been waiting for this Matthew Knies type of prospect forever. Like, they have not had this young, power forward, goal scoring, aggressive player. They just haven't had that in years. And he really sets himself apart from the rest of the core. So I don't know why all of a sudden Brad Treliving is entertaining the possibility of trading Matthew Knies. Like, it would have to be a whopper of a deal. Like, you would have to absolutely knock my socks off to get a deal like that done, especially with the division rival like the Montreal Canadiens. Like, what do you even think it would take for Montreal to pry Knies off of Toronto? Because there'd be an elevated tax for the Montreal for an in-division fee, a Leafs-Habs rivalry fee. Like, they would have to pay an exorbitant amount for Matthew Knies, no?
I would assume that, yes, they would have to pay handsomely, which is probably why, they probably had discussions. Montreal, we know, is always looking for, a top line forward. I thought they were going to push more towards a center. Like, I did hear that Robert Thomas was a player that they had talked about, but I guess they were going to balk at the price that St. Louis was going to ask for Robert Thomas. And Robert Thomas even came out today and said that he was never asked to waive his no trade clause. I mean, if you're St. Louis, they're probably going to ask that after the deal was already agreed upon and had to go get the clause done. But like, if I'm the Leafs, you have to think that you can't just take prospects back in a nice trade, right? Like, you need something tangible to help you going into next season. I don't know what exactly that piece would have been on Montreal. That, like, you would think we would have been a defenseman, because the Leafs needed a blue liner so bad.
Yeah, and like, they got a couple of young ones like Caden Gooley, David Reinbacher, I guess. Like, he hasn't quite.
Yeah, that's who some people were suggesting me. Oh, maybe it was Reinbacher, maybe it was
Caden Gooley. Yeah, but they got that Michael Hage kid who's playing in college right now. Like, he projects to be like, possibly like a second line center at the NHL level. So could he have been involved? Maybe another piece and a first round pick. Like, that's what you're assuming if you're the Maple Leafs. Like, you're looking for 3-4 big time pieces. Like, we'd heard that Robert Thomas, right? The pieces that Buffalo were offering in a potential Robert Thomas trade, or that they were trying to get from Buffalo, was 4 pieces equivalent to like multiple first round picks. I would imagine the same ask would be out there for a Matthew Knies, realistically,
considering his contract and his age.
His contract, his age, and the man's a freaking unicorn. Like, it just, though, like, Matthew Knies just don't grow on trees at the end of the day. So, and the fact that it's an interdivisional, rivalry trade, like, it's going to be expensive. So ultimately, I don't think it got even close to a deal. But it is interesting to hear that those two were talking, and it always does open up the door for talks to pick back up in the summer And if that were to ever happen, like it would have to be just an enormous payment to make it work. And if not, like if Tree Living gets fleeced on that deal, like just handing your key card, like the second you make that trade and it's considered a fleecing, you would have to just quit on the spot.
Yeah.
Like
I would, if I was Keith Pelly, I would make sure that his cell service got cut off before the deal gets made.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I actually was, I was talking about it with a buddy of mine, and I'm like, I don't even know if that's a deal that, like, I would hope that, let's say they did come to some sort of agreement, right, where it's, let's say Caden Gooley, Hage in a first, right, just to throw out a deal out there that sounds like it could be relatively in the range of what the value would be. I would hope that if Brad Treliving went to ownership with that deal, they would look him straight in the face, say, "Are you high? There is no chance you're making that trade with Montreal.
Yeah,
like I don't care who they give you, you can't make that deal like that. No." And I would hope that ownership would nix the trade at the end of the day. And with this leaking out, I wonder if Keith Pelly makes a phone call to Brad Treliving and say, "Hey, how close were you on this? Is there any validity to this?" And then says, "Buddy, smarten up. Like, Knies, don't really even think about trading this guy. He has to be part of your now and future."
Not only that, throw away the Knies parts of this. What was Montreal willing to offer you that would make you trade a young, promising player to one of the most hated rivals that this franchise has ever had? Also, if Caden Gooley was actually the name being thrown out there and Brad Treliving did that deal, I would have gone to the office and aired my grievances, because that man is a walking Band-Aid. I'm sorry. Like,
I know
his worst trait about him is he's never available.
Yeah.
And has had terrible injuries. So, like, even that aside, I also just think that, like a lot of teams in the NHL, there are just certain teams they don't trade with. Now Calgary is basically blacklisted Toronto as long as Brad Treliving is GM. Like, there's a reason for that. Like, if Conroy went and made a deal with Brad Treliving, I'm sure ownership and the fan base can be like, "Really? You made a trade with this guy?" Although if you're a Flames fan, you're probably like, "Do we fleece him? Like, we got fleeced in some deals." That's how I would feel about that. But yeah, no, the fact, like, when I heard Montreal's name come out of Kipro's mouth, I went, "You gotta be joking."
Yeah,
like,
of all teams, Montreal.
Like, I'm pretty level-headed when it comes to these sort of things. There's one team. Like, it's Ottawa to a degree, but at least Ottawa have made a trade before when they made the Phaneuf deal. So, like, at least there's that. Like, I can't remember the Plekanec deal.
That's the only. I'm literally looking it up now.
That was the last trade I can remember, like, that these two teams made, and Toronto paid a pretty decent price for Thomas Plekanec, and that was just weird to see him in a Leafs jersey, and I'm sure a lot of Habs fans felt that way too. I remember, I think, pretty sure a lot of Habs fans were pissed that Montreal made a trade with Toronto, because it's just like, what are you doing? I remember the Grabowski trade when the Leafs got Grabowski from Montreal, but that was kind of like, not many people really knew much about Grabowski until he actually came on the scene, and then it was like, oh, okay, it's kind of weird that Montreal traded this guy to Toronto. But again, like, it just does not happen very often because there's perception, right? It's not. I understand, like, sometimes you got to go out and get what the best deal is. And I remember Friedman was talking about 32 Thoughts that, like, would a deal, like, let's say with New Jersey, had been Knies for Simon Nemeth straight up. And he says, I don't think Toronto would ever do anything like that. So that makes me believe that, yeah, if Toronto was going to move Matthew Knies, again, massive offer. It can't just be a couple of pieces. I think it has to be a massive overpay.
That's it, right? Like, I don't think the Leafs look at it and think, like, if we're going to trade Knies, like, it's not going to be an even trade. Like, you need to overpay to get him.
Yes.
And why would Montreal do that? Like, Kent Hughes isn't a dumb GM. Like he's a very good GM. Like he's done really good things with the Montreal Canadiens. Look where they are in the standings in comparison to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So it makes sense. They balked at the Robert Thomas price. They balked at the Matthew Knies price. We'll see. They could still end up kind of circling back at some point. But yeah, for now, Matthew Knies staying in Toronto. And I know a lot of Leaf fans happy about that. Not happy about how the season has gone, but happy about that. But the crazy part, Dave, is they play tonight. So, like, the fact that this gets out the night before they play, this is going to be so loud at morning skate and practice tomorrow. I can only imagine how much they're going to get asked about this. It's going to be it'll be a loud morning skate. I can assure you that. It usually is when Montreal and Toronto play. But after this bombshell, that there's a potential blockbuster trade brewing.
Well, and the funny thing is, this comes out almost a couple of hours after Knies talked about being in the rumor mill, and he's just like, he tried not to think too much about it, but at the same time, you can't help but think about the position you're in.
Yeah. All right. On the other side, we'll tee up tonight's game, Leafs-Habs, and how can the Leafs make use of the final 18 games of the season? We'll get to that list next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. College basketball is nonstop, big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your needs. You can mix spreads, totals, player props to match how you see the slate playing out, and then you can apply the profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside to it. Head to FanDuel.com. Get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you here. And just a reminder, if you never miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Every Dayer Club and get ad-free audio access to our members-only Discord and more, all built for our most loyal fans. Click the link down in the description below to learn more and join our team's community. All right, Dave. So we had a game tonight, Leafs and Habs. It's game 65 on the slate. Still 18 of these bad boys to go. And it's unfamiliar territory for a lot of Toronto Maple Leaf fans. I mean, obviously, we do remember what it was like pre-Matthews, but it's been like a decade since the Leafs have been irrelevant at this point of the year. So, it is in that regard unfamiliar territory. And they're taking on the Habs, who are obviously a really good team. And, the Leafs and Habs, it's a good rivalry. So I'm sure that should motivate the Leafs to at least, try in this game. They are on a 7-game losing streak still. Not sure that the Habs are the opponent that they'll bust the slump against. But what are you anticipating in this one tonight, Dave?
I mean, Montreal's played Toronto very tough this year, especially in Montreal. There was that game where the Leafs just absolutely fell apart.
Yeah.
And then I think the last time that was the one that Montreal won in the shootout.
Yeah. Toronto's 1-1 so far against the Habs this year. 1-1.
Yeah, like I just think like Montreal they had a half decent road trip in California, so you wonder, does them returning back home, do they have the West Coast return? How do you call it? What do you usually call it? The West Coast legs or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. The West Coast. O-Dog has a phrase for it. He calls it something, but like the West Coast stupor, basically, where your first game back from the West Coast road trip is usually a slog. Is typically kind of how it goes. So that is an opportunity for Toronto to take advantage of Montreal coming back from the West Coast. Now I will say that they've had 3 days off. Like Montreal hasn't played since Saturday, then it's now Tuesday. So they've had a few days off to adjust. And there was also a time zone change in between all of that, or daylight savings change in between all that as well. So they I've probably had time to adjust there, but yeah, that is something worth considering, I guess, going into tonight's game. At some point here, I just want to see like Matthews score a goal, man. Like I'm starting to feel bad for this guy. Like 11 straight games, and it's got to be killing him. Got to be killing him that this guy can't go out there and put a puck in the back of the net.
It's tough to watch. It's tough to see because I think Mike Kelly even put out a graphic. I mean, if you find the graphic, like here's the thing about it, like Austin Matthews, and some people are, it's been a tough season for him, and he's, not played to the expectation of what we've, even his own expectations. If we're being honest here, but look at this, okay? His last 11 games, he's had more shots on net, pretty much, around the same number of slot shots. He was expected to score about 4 goals, and he has no goals over his last 11 games. It's not for a lack of chances; they're just not going in for him.
Yeah.
Now he's
been good for a post or crossbar each and every one of these games the last 3 or 4. Like I'm pretty sure he's got at least 1, if not 2 per game over his last few games here.
And that's the tough part, right? Because I truly think that he probably should have had at least 1 or 2 goals in this stretch. And so I'm not thinking that this is because Austin Matthews isn't trying, because I know some people have had that thought. I just think that he needs to kind of go back and maybe get back to the player the goal scorer he was. He is trying at times, I think, to be a distributor, get other guys going, but he's just gotta keep working at it. I don't think the process is all that bad, just the results aren't coming for him.
Yeah, I think I've got so later today on gameplay. I've been doing gameplay for the last month, 2 to 4 on TSN 1050, and a little preview to those who might tune in. But we're doing a Tuesday top 5, right? Top 5 ways the Maple Leafs can make meaning of the final 18 games of the year, and one of them is getting Matthews back on track. Right? Like that's got to be one of the ways that you can make meaning of it. If you can get Matthews, these final 18 games, get him to snap his scoring streak, and then just get him his confidence back, you need that. I don't want to see Matthews go the final 18 games and only score 2 or 3 goals. That's not going to be good for him and his psyche going into the summer. I love for him to score in a losing effort, granted. Go out there, get, 8-9 goals in the final 18 games, lose those games. However, that would be best for the business for the Maple Leafs. But that's got to be one of the things looking forward. How do you make meaning? Well, get the captain his confidence back, because it's dropped right now. And with the team not having success, he's not having individual success. It's been brutal. It's been brutal all around. So, that's a player I kind of look to tonight in a big game like this. Maybe this is the night where he puts the team on his back and doesn't accept losing finally, right? They've lost 7 in a row. It's been a tough 2 weeks, right? This is the type of game where Matthews show us that you still have the capabilities of putting your cape on and being a top player in the league, right? This is the type of game to do it. Stop the bleeding, because it's just been 2 weeks of bad hockey for this Maple Leafs team. Get Matthews to go out there and stop the bleeding and kind of lead by example. That's kind of what I want to see in tonight's game, and then kind of keep up that level of confidence and intensity, and here's the buzzword, urgency, moving forward, right? That's one way to kind of make meaning out of these final 18 games.
Yeah, I do think that you want to see, if Matthews, if he gets to the point where it looks like Matthews physically is just there's something physical there.
Do you see, it doesn't look to me that it's as last year you could tell, right?
Yes.
There was something physical. The guy wasn't skating around nearly as well. The guy wasn't shooting the puck with any authority. It didn't look right at most of the year. I'm not saying he looks like his 69 goal self, but I think it's more confidence at this point than it is.
Yeah, I can see it. he's had they've tried so many different line mates. Then I mean, we can bring up the lines from practice.
They're putting new lines in the blender once again. Oh, they're kind of just going back to resetting it almost to what it looked like to start the season. Like maybe that's what they're doing. This is a refresh to start the year, because this is pretty much like if you go back and look at what the night one lineup looked like, this is pretty bang on to what we saw on opening night. You got Matthews with Domi and Knies. You've got Tavares with Michelli and Nylander. Then you've got obviously Jacob Quillan taking the spot of Nick Lavoie on the third line center. You've got Easton, Cowan, and Nick Robertson with him, and then Joshua, Lorentz, and Yarncroc as the fourth line. Like, this looks eerily similar to what we saw at the beginning of the season. It's gone full circle, just trying to find, something that could work here for anyone on this team to get a spark. Anyone not named Michelli, who's the only one out here scoring goals, 3 straight games with a goal, 6 goals, his last 11. He's taken Matthews' goal-scoring power, for Pete's sake. But again, it's just trying to get guys going, trying to break this streak. We're seeing lines get shuffled, and they're kind of reverting back to maybe some familiarity from earlier in the year.
Yeah, and like I don't know. To me, it's like they've done this. They've done these lines. Sure, fine. Like I think going with the same thing each and every game probably just does not make a lot of sense for this group, because
I kind of like that third line though, with like those young players, Cowan, Quillan, Robertson. Feels like that could be like an energy line, like some 3 guys with some speed. Feels like they could go out there and be hungry with opportunity.
The only thing I had thought about is, eventually, maybe, hopefully, they call up another player from the Marlies to give him some opportunity.
Luke
Hames probably is deserving.
Yeah.
Like, can't Nick Robertson find a way to get into the top 6?
Well, who are you moving out, though? I guess Max Domi's the answer. You're moving Domi out?
Right? You can move Domi to the 4th line, even, because, like, Lorentz, Yarncroc, I don't know why he's still playing. Sure, okay, fine. But that's one thing. Like, Nick Robertson has at least been trying. One of the few players other than Mitchell, he scored last game too. He effort from him, and they're not rewarding him. That's the part that drives me bonkers.
He very well knows that he's got another arbitration case coming up in August, and he wants to put his best foot forward to throw it in Tree's face that he had a successful season. So yeah, he's definitely trying, and he's continuing to play well. I guess, I'm with you. At some point, I'd like to see Nicky Bobby, top 6 Nicky Bobby reemerge. We saw some success earlier in the year. The thing is, that's the only player I guess you're taking out is Max Domi, and then I guess you're moving Quillan back down to the 4th line, or I guess you said put Domi 4C and put I don't know, what are you doing then? Joshua on that third line with those guys?
Yeah, you can have Dakota Joshua there. You can I think that's probably what I would consider doing.
Yeah. I think at some point might see that happen. I wouldn't be surprised. Again, how do you make meaning out of the final 18 games? Another one on my list is give the younger players a better look. Give them more opportunity, whether that's Cowan, Robertson, Quillan, Luke Hames, eventually call him up, see what he can do with his first little foray into the NHL. So, another way to make meaning out of the final 18 games. See what you got in the younger players. See if they can be part of the future and the near future next season, as early as next season. They're going to need some players, right? They're going to need some guys. Anything else you wanted to get into?
Nope. We'll just see how this game goes, but expectations
they should be very low right now. Yeah. Expectations should be very low for this Maple Leafs team right now. Absolutely. They've done nothing to prove otherwise. So until they get it going, start putting the puck in the back of the net, start stopping the puck from ending up in the back of your own net, it's going to be very low expectations for the Maple Leafs the rest of the way. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at _Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.